Hi, I'm Christine Herman of Herman's Quality Meat Shop in Newark, Delaware. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about beef short ribs and how we at Herman's prepare them for you. Are you ready? In this video, as we talk about how we build beef short ribs, I'm going to ask you to use your imagination just a little bit for the sake of time and sound as well. So what I have in front of me on my block is a rib of beef. And this is your prime rib, and these are your short ribs. And imagine, again, your imagination, that these are connected like that. And that's how it comes off the animal naturally. And we have taken them off, as I said. And this particular piece, as I said, is your prime rib, or your rib steaks or your Delmonico steaks that we can cut individually. But we're not going to be talking about that and focusing on this. But I am going to share with you again, in the element of imagination, there's also another piece of meat that lays on the back of this, both pieces obviously because they're connected at one point, what we refer to as deckle meat. It is a term of a wonderful piece of meat. Actually, it's several thin muscles that lay on the back and protect the back of the rib. And we trim that off and make this beautiful piece of meat here. But what we do with that, is we take that meat and we trim it like this. And it has some beautiful marbling. And I'm just going to set that aside, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing here, because we're going to work with the short rib portion of the rib. Now, some people enjoy beef ribs. There's a couple different parts of the animal that you can have the beef ribs from. One is right off the prime rib that I was just showing you, and another is this section here, and the third would be off the plate. And we're not going to be talking about the plate ribs, although that's the extension of this bone here, which is actually, if you remember the old Fred Flintstone, and he pulls up to the store, like the drive-through, and he's got that big piece of meat. That's what this whole thing is. But anyway, a side note. But we'll just stick to where we need to be right now with what we're talking about, okay? Our beef short ribs are dry aged. As you can see by looking at this, it comes right off the animal. And the natural short rib itself is typically these three bones. And the reason being is you can see that there's a lot less meat here, and then these three ribs or bones have more meat to them. And if I flip it around again, you can see a little more of that meat. But you're saying to yourself, well, it still doesn't look like a whole lot of meat. And you're right. It really isn't a whole lot of meat. It is the natural way it falls off the animal, if you will, and I agree with you on that, and that's very important. However, what we do is take it one step further, and we like to section it off, and we've trimmed the bone, and I'm just going to trim this even a little bit more and get rid of that. And then you see we have this big chunk of fat in there that, in my opinion, when that cooks down, you're not going to have as much meat as you need. So what I like to do is trim it again. And bear with me, I'm going to do a couple of these so you see what I'm doing. I am going to leave some of that fat on there, on the bone, because that is part of the recipe and what makes it so delicious, because as I've said before, the flavor is in the fat. So I'm going to trim this a little bit like so. Have another piece. I'm just going to move these chunks of fat away. Now, actually what I should say, and I apologize, when these three are connected, this is a whole nother recipe where we cut across the bones. So you have bone, meat, bone, meat, bone, meat. And we cut across, and we refer to that as like a Chinese style or cross-cut short ribs, and some people like to cook them on the grill as well, but that's another recipe. But what I'm doing today in this video is trimming off this beautiful fat, and you'll see when I'm done, there's not much meat on there. So you're saying to yourself, well, what's the good of that? Well, what we do is we take that off. We actually take this right down to the meat. And right down, in some cases, right down to the bone. And I'll do one more just for the sake of it. So you can see the difference in how little meat there could possibly be. And they're really, it's hard, maybe hard for you to tell, but there's really not much meat on there. It's bone. However, we have this beautiful meat here that we match like so. We trim it like so. And then we tie it on. And this butcher's twine is ideal for cooking. You can always cook with the twine on. That's never a problem. And then after you've cooked it, we'll talk about a recipe in just a moment. After you cook it, you take the sharp knife or scissors, or you put it at your plate, however you're plating them, and you cut the strings, and you have the meat that's on the bone. But then you also have that beautiful chunk of meat, which I can show you from this perspective, that beautiful chunk of meat to enjoy. And there you have a beautiful short rib. I'm going to build a couple of these just so you see. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take like this piece of meat here and angle it and match it so that it blends just nicely. And this is how we do short ribs at Herman's, because we again feel that you should have a full piece of meat to serve your guests or your family. We like to suggest, as far as a portion is concerned, one of these ribs is about 12 to 16 ounces, sometimes a little bit more, just depending. Like this guy here might be just pretty close to a pound or maybe a little heavy. And that one piece should be sufficient, because by the time you take the bone away, certainly you're going to have a good 8 ounces or so of meat, which is more than sufficient per serving. So here's another short rib. And I could just keep going with all of this meat here. And here's another beautiful piece that I could build on as well. And you can see and kind of get the hint as to what I'm doing. And then we square it off nicely. And this piece has that angle there, and I could even build this in kind of creative and kind of make this work to your advantage. You're the customer, and you should have a nice piece of meat to serve your guests and your family. And this is a very popular item. The holidays, we sell, I can't tell you how many pieces we sell of these short ribs at the holidays in particular, because it does make a beautiful presentation as well as a nice meal. Some people like to have us cut these in half or maybe even in thirds as well, which is another reason why I'm putting the string the way I am, so that we can cut it and you still have the string holding the meat and the bone together. And that way they have smaller portions. So there you have it. A very simple recipe, just a quick version, is to flour these and sear them in some olive oil, and then add some carrots and onions and some tomato, and slow cook these in either a crock pot or a frying pan of sort, or Dutch oven, and just let it slow cook with some tomato sauce. Deglaze your pan with some maybe some red wine, and just let those flavors cook for probably a good 2 to 3 hours, depending. I mean, these are very meaty and hearty, as you can see. Let them cook for a couple of hours, and then serve it over mashed potatoes or rice or polenta, something like that. And you will have a delicious, delicious meal. And you can see just how beautiful those are. And I would continue to build these, but I think you get the idea of how that works. And it is, oh, I've got one more here. Why not? We can do that. It is one of my favorite meals, and I'm a beef eater personally. So I really enjoy this particular meal. And it's flavorful and simple. So there you have your beef short ribs, dry aged from Herman's. There you go. One more ready. One more piece of twine, butcher's twine, and there's 4 of them. Voila. There you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you like that. Thank you. We have just talked about how we make our beef short ribs. And the recipe takes, as I mentioned, a little bit of time, maybe 2 or so hours, a little bit of preparation ahead of time as well. Maybe you're not a cook. Maybe you don't enjoy cooking. So how do you make cooking fun? How do you get yourself in the kitchen? What's your motivation? Well, I have to eat, so I'm going to make something for dinner, or I'm having company. What am I going to do? Let's think of some ways to make cooking fun. How we can enjoy the time and pass the time in the kitchen and doing the dishes and setting the table. So I've got a few ideas just to kind of throw out there to you, and you can run with it, or you can give me some of your ideas as well in the comments below. One of my favorites is getting my family involved. Whether it's talking to somebody on the phone while I'm cooking, or having somebody in the house with me. Maybe I cook and they clean up. Or if you have children, having the kids help. Have them just set the table. They can easily set the table, get the silverware, the napkins, unloading the dishwasher or loading the dishwasher, or measuring out, having them watch you cook and learning measurements and the math and the science behind it. That's really important for an 8, 9, 10-year-old as well. I know with my granddaughter, I let her help me and read the directions, and those are all good lessons as well as bonding and family time together. Maybe that's not for you, or maybe you don't have family, or maybe you're preparing at a different time. How about turning on music? How about a podcast? How about listening to a book on tape? A lot of people I know have a television in their kitchen, so they're listening to the news or a TV show, whatever. That's another idea. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas. I could go on and on, but my favorite idea, of course, another idea that I have, of course, is to just tune into Herman's YouTube channel. Why not? You could always just have us playing in the background. I thought you'd like that. Well, I hope that was a fun kitchen tip. Let me know how you like your short ribs and how you enjoy your cooking experience. Thank you. Beef short ribs. If you've never tried them before, I invite you to give them a try. They're fun, they're not too difficult, and it's kind of a set it and forget it once you get going and just get your braise going, and then let them sit in this pot for a little while and just let them cook on their own while you do something else. So I hope this was a fun and an easy video, something that you'll bookmark and try another time or this time. And remember to like our channel, comment, and please be sure to subscribe so that we can continue to bring you these fun tips and ideas in cooking. Thank you so much. Have a great day.